The Severance. The vast chamber of the Galactic Confederation Grand Assembly fell silent as Ambassador Kiran Sharma approached the central podium. His footsteps echoed through the cavernous hall, where representatives of over 700 alien species watched with expressions ranging from confusion to thinly veiled contempt. The kaleidoscope of alien forms, crystalline structures, amorphous blobs, insectoid collectives, and humanoid figures all focused their attention on the lone human. Ambassador Sharma stood tall, his weathered face betraying no emotion despite the gravity of the moment. At 56 Earth years, he had spent nearly half his life representing humanity's interests among the stars. Today would be his last day in this capacity. After thorough deliberation and by unanimous decision of Earth's Unified Council, he announced, his voice steady and clear, "I hereby declare the formal withdrawal of humanity from the Galactic Confederation, effective immediately." 3 seconds of stunned silence followed before the chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates rose from their seats in agitation. Translation devices struggled to keep pace with the sudden barrage of alien languages. Emergency lights pulsed as species with more volatile temperaments began displaying signs of aggression. High Counselor Thorlax, a towering 9-foot entity with iridescent scales and 6 limbs, raised all his appendages to call for order. Ambassador Sharma, surely this is a misunderstanding. Humanity has been a valued associate of the Confederation for over 170 years. Kiran remained unmoved. There is no misunderstanding, High Counselor. Our decision is final. In orbit above the Confederation capital world of Nexus Prime, Commander Elena Reyes watched the proceedings from the bridge of the HFY Intrepid, Earth's flagship. Her crew worked with practiced efficiency around her, already executing the carefully planned withdrawal of all human assets from Confederation space. "Status report," she ordered, dark eyes fixed on the display showing human vessels disengaging from Confederation stations throughout the sector. "All diplomatic personnel are boarding transports now, Commander," replied her executive officer, Lieutenant Commander David Chen. "Military vessels have formed escort formations. We should be ready for system jump within 90 minutes. Elena nodded. "And the data packages?" "Removed from all shared networks as ordered. We've left only what treaties legally require." Back in the assembly chamber, the initial shock was transforming into indignation. A small avian delegate pointed a feathered appendage at Ambassador Sharma. "You cannot simply leave. What about your commitments? The technology exchanges? The defense pacts?" Kiran activated his wrist device, transmitting documents to every delegate's personal console. "All legally required transition plans are outlined here. Earth will honor its contractual obligations during the 3-month separation period." High Counselor Thorlax leaned forward, his scales shifting to a deep purple, a sign of concern among his kind. "Ambassador, perhaps we should discuss this privately. I'm certain whatever grievances your government harbors can be addressed to mutual satisfaction." Kiran fought back to the final catalyst, the Confederation's unanimous rejection of Earth's proposed medical technologies that could have saved billions across the galaxy, dismissed as too disruptive to established healthcare hierarchies. It was merely the latest in a long pattern of suppression. For 70 years, the Confederation has systematically blocked human innovations under the pretense of maintaining stability, he replied, his composure finally showing cracks of emotion. "For 70 years, we have witnessed suffering continue that we could have prevented. The time for private discussions has long passed." In a private observation box above the chamber, Trade Minister Zilfok turned to his aide with a dismissive gesture of his tentacles. "This is merely a negotiation tactic. Humans are emotional and impulsive. They'll return once they realize how dependent they are on Confederation resources." His aide, wiser than her superior, remained silent, watching as Ambassador Sharma exited the chamber for the final time. He passed a group of junior delegates from newer Confederation species whose eyes followed him with something rarely seen in these halls: respect, and perhaps a touch of hope. On the Intrepid, Commander Reyes received confirmation that the last human diplomat had departed from Confederation grounds. All personnel accounted for, she announced to her crew. Prepare for departure. As the assembled human ships engaged their drives and disappeared into the darkness of space, they left behind a Confederation that didn't yet comprehend what they had lost. The universe was about to find out. The first 3 weeks following humanity's departure passed without incident. The Confederation's propaganda machine worked overtime to assure member species that the humans' absence was inconsequential, a mere blip in the grand cosmic order. Many believed it. On Earth and its 17 colony worlds, the transition proceeded with remarkable efficiency. Centuries of operating under the restrictive Confederation protocols had forced humans to develop parallel systems and contingencies. When the severance came, these systems simply stepped into place. In her office at the newly established Human Alliance headquarters in Geneva, Commander Reyes reviewed reports with Director Amara Okafor, head of the Alliance's Science Division. We've already begun implementing the medical technologies that the Confederation rejected, Amara said, displaying holographic projections of advanced nanomedicines being distributed to human populations. Preliminary results show a 78% reduction in mortality rates for previously untreatable conditions. Elena nodded with satisfaction. And our defensive posture. The stealth monitoring network is fully operational. We're tracking all Confederation movements near our borders. They still have no idea about our true military capabilities. Let's hope it stays that way, Elena replied. The last thing we need is a shooting war while we're still consolidating. Meanwhile, on the Confederation trade hub world of Kelburn, the first signs of trouble were emerging. Merchant Vikstall stood in his warehouse, staring at shelves that should have been stocked with human agricultural products. His communications device buzzed constantly with messages from desperate clients. "No, I don't know when more will arrive," he told an agitated customer. "No, I cannot offer alternatives." "Yes, I understand your colony needs them." He deactivated the device in frustration. Across Confederation space, similar scenes began to play out. Human goods, from simple tools to complex machinery, became increasingly scarce. Items that various species had taken for granted for decades suddenly couldn't be found at any price. In the Confederation Emergency Committee meeting, High Counselor Thorlax struggled to maintain order as representatives from multiple sectors demanded immediate action. How is it possible that the departure of one species has caused such disruption? He demanded. Humans comprise barely 2% of Confederation population. Economic advisor Trellin projected charts showing alarming declines across multiple sectors. It appears humans were more essential than we acknowledged. They filled specific roles throughout our economy that other species cannot easily replace. Such as, pressed Thorlax. Their engineering teams maintained 65% of deep space communication relays. Their security forces protected key trade routes in the Outer Rim. Their agricultural methods supplied specialized nutrition for 27 different species. Trellin paused before adding, and those are just their official contributions. Out in the lawless Perseus corridor, Captain Rev of the transport vessel Distant Seeker huddled with his crew in an emergency shelter. Outside, pirate vessels circled their disabled ship. "Where are the patrol ships?" asked his frightened navigator. The humans always responded within hours. Rev checked the emergency beacon again. They're not coming. Confederation replaced human patrols with Dracarian forces last month. But the Dracarians are ceremonial warriors. They don't even understand modern combat techniques. The Confederation thought anyone could do what humans did, Rev said bitterly. 3 days later, when a rescue ship finally arrived, they found only empty corridors and bloodstains. Back on Earth, Ambassador Sharma reviewed intelligence reports in his new office at Alliance headquarters. Large displays showed dozens of Confederation worlds experiencing varying levels of crisis. "They're learning the hard way," he told Elena as she entered. "For centuries, we solved problems quietly because the Confederation wouldn't acknowledge they existed." "Sir," Interrupted Inade, we're detecting unusual ship movements near the border with non-Confederation space. The Zethrak Empire appears to be testing Confederation defenses. Neither Kiran nor Elena was surprised. The Zethrak, ancient enemies of the Confederation, would inevitably sense weakness. Without human military advisors, the Confederation's defensive strategies are outdated and predictable. Elena noted, how long before they realize it was humans who were actually keeping the peace all along? Kiran wondered aloud. As the 3-month separation period reached its conclusion, the cracks in the Confederation's facade were becoming impossible to ignore. On the mining world Crack 7, black market dealer Zorv made another sale of authentic human technology to desperate buyers. Most of his merchandise was counterfeit, but customers didn't care anymore. They were panic buying anything labeled as Earth-made. This water purifier was designed by humans. He lied smoothly to a colony administrator. It will work for 15 years without maintenance. The buyer didn't even haggle. The price was 8 times what it had been before humans left, but clean water was becoming a luxury in some systems. In a quiet corner of Confederation space, representatives from 5 smaller species met secretly on an unmarked station. They spoke in hushed tones about making contact with the human alliance. "The Confederation is failing," said one delegate. "We need alternatives before it's too late." As they talked, a message arrived from Earth. The humans had anticipated their outreach and were already offering membership in their new alliance. Back in the Grand Assembly chambers, High Counselor Sorlax received disturbing news. 3 previously compliant client species had suddenly demanded full voting rights and technological access. "Or what?" he asked his security chief. "Or they will leave the Confederation and seek human protection," came the reply. Sorlax stared out at the stars. The first tremors were turning into an earthquake, and he was beginning to fear what would follow. The Reckoning. 6 months after humanity's departure from the Galactic Confederation, the first catastrophic system failures began to cascade through what had once been the most stable political entity in the known universe. On the agricultural world of Verdant, Governor Zilak stared in horror at projections showing imminent crop failures across the planet's southern hemisphere. Without human-maintained irrigation systems, soil degradation had accelerated beyond critical thresholds. "We need to evacuate 6 million people," he told his crisis team. "The land won't support them anymore." "Evacuate where?" his deputy asked. "Every habitable world in the sector is facing similar shortages." Verdant wasn't alone. Throughout Confederation space, infrastructure that had functioned flawlessly for generations began to break down. Communication delays between systems stretched from minutes to hours to days. Trade volumes plummeted as merchant vessels, wary of increased pirate activity, demanded escort fees that made most cargo runs unprofitable. In the Alliance headquarters on Earth, Director Amara Okafor presented the latest intelligence to the Leadership Council. Holographic displays showed spreading zones of instability across what had once been Confederation territory. "They're struggling even more than we anticipated," she noted. "Human engineers and technicians maintained far more of their critical systems than they ever acknowledge." Ambassador Sharma nodded grimly. "For centuries, the Confederation treated us as junior partners, useful laborers, but not equals. Our departure has revealed the truth about who was actually keeping their society functional." Commander Reyes studied the tactical displays with a professional eye. "The Zethrak Empire has already seized 3 border systems. Confederation response has been disorganized and ineffective." "And our diplomatic outreach?" Karen asked. Elena activated a different display showing star systems in various colors. 17 species have already signed alliance treaties with us. Another 31 have opened formal negotiations. Mostly smaller species that were marginalized under Confederation hierarchy, noted Director Okafor. "The ones who suffered most under their system," Kiran replied. "They recognized the imbalance long before this crisis forced it into the open." On the Confederation capital of Nexus Prime, High Counselor Thorlax faced growing unrest. Outside the Grand Government Complex, representatives from 40 different species staged protests, demanding reforms that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. In an emergency session of the High Council, Thorlax struggled to maintain authority as accusations flew between factions. "We should have anticipated this," shouted Councillor Vrek, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. "For too long, we relied on humans to solve problems while pretending we were directing them." "The humans were deliberately sabotaging us," countered Councillor Gilm, her tentacles waving dismissively. "They engineered dependencies on their skills, then abandoned us." "That's absurd," Vrek responded. "We systematically blocked their full participation, while exploiting their abilities. Now we're paying the price." Thorlax pounded the council table. "Enough. This bickering solves nothing. We need concrete solutions." He turned to his military commander. "What of the diplomatic mission to Earth?" General Kravzak's upper membranes flushed with embarrassment. Ambassador Trell's delegation was rebuffed. The humans refused to consider rejoining the Confederation under any circumstances. What demands did they make? None, High Counselor. They simply stated that the relationship had run its course. They suggested that any species wishing to form new partnerships could apply directly to their alliance. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't interested in negotiating its return. It was creating an alternative to the Confederation itself. In the industrial hub of Makanan, riots broke out as factory workers discovered that critical components, once supplied exclusively by human manufacturers, had run out. Production lines across 16 sectors shut down, triggering layoffs that affected millions. Security forces, already stretched thin by similar disturbances on dozens of worlds, struggled to contain the violence. Blamed for the economic collapse, government buildings were ransacked and officials forced to flee. On the frontier world of New Horizon, once a modest human colony that had chosen to remain outside the Confederation, Governor Maya Rodriguez welcomed a delegation from the Trilaxian Federation, the first major power to formally break with the Confederation and seek alliance with humanity. "Your world has changed dramatically," noted Ambassador Kree, observing the bustling spaceport from the governor's office window. "We've been busy," Maya replied with a smile. "Without Confederation restrictions, we've implemented technologies that they suppressed for decades. Our population has tripled, and our industrial output has increased sevenfold. This is why we've come," said Kree. The Confederation claimed such rapid development would cause societal instability. Yet here we see the opposite. The Confederation feared change because it threatened established power structures, Maya explained. Humanity embraces change as opportunity. Later that day, the Trilaxian Federation became the 18th full member of the Human Alliance, bringing with them access to resources from 22 star systems. In deep space, at coordinates carefully omitted from all official records, Commander Reyes personally oversaw the activation of Sentinel Array Alpha, the first of several defensive installations that humanity had secretly constructed over decades, hidden from Confederation surveillance. "System online," reported Lieutenant Commander Chen. "Defensive umbrella is operational for all inner alliance territories." Elena nodded with satisfaction. "Activate stealth protocols. Let's keep this particular surprise hidden as long as possible." The massive installation, nearly the size of a small moon, shimmered briefly before disappearing from both visual and sensor detection. Its presence would remain unknown to the Confederation until the moment its capabilities were needed. Meanwhile, on the once prosperous trade world of Mercantis, desperate merchants gathered in what had been the galaxy's largest marketplace, where thousands of stalls had once showcased goods from hundreds of worlds. Barely 100 remained active. "My family has traded here for 7 generations," lamented Merchant Vox to his few remaining colleagues. "I never thought I would see it end like this." "It's those cursed humans," spat another trader. "They abandoned us." An older merchant, wiser than his peers, shook his head. "No, my friends. The Confederation abandoned them first, repeatedly and deliberately. We just never noticed because the consequences didn't affect us. Until now. Across the room, a commotion broke out as news spread through the gathering. 3 more systems had formally seceded from the Confederation to join the Human Alliance. On Earth, Ambassador Sharma was awakened in the middle of the night by an urgent call. Director Okafor's hologram appeared beside his bed, her expression grave. "Kiran, we've intercepted Confederation military communications. The High Council has authorized force against seceding members." He sat up immediately. "Which systems?" "They're planning simultaneous operations against Triloxia Prime, Nebulon, and Vega Colony. All founding members of our alliance," Kiran noted. "They're targeting our strongest supporters. Commander Reyes has already activated our response protocols. She requests your presence at headquarters immediately." As Kiran dressed quickly, he reflected on how predictable the Confederation's response had been. When diplomacy and economic pressure failed, they inevitably turned to military force, exactly as humanity had anticipated. Within the hour, the Alliance Leadership Council convened in the Secure Command Center beneath Geneva. Commander Reyes outlined the situation with clinical precision as tactical displays showed Confederation fleet movements. They've assembled 3 strike forces, each targeting a different Alliance member world. Their communication encryption is primitive. We know their attack plans in detail. "Casualties?" asked Maya Rodriguez, attending via secure hologram from New Horizon. "Significant, if we allow their attacks to proceed," Elena answered. "Each target world has a population of at least 4 billion. "Options?" Kiran inquired. Elena's expression remained neutral, but a hint of satisfaction flickered in her eyes. "I recommend we activate contingency revelation. It's time the Confederation learned exactly what they're facing." Director Okafor nodded in agreement. "Our intelligence indicates they still believe our technological capabilities are at the level we displayed while under Confederation restrictions. They have no concept of our actual military strength." Kiran considered for a moment, then nodded. "Proceed with revelation. But minimal casualties, Elena. We want to demonstrate power, not replicate their willingness to sacrifice lives." "Understood, Mr. Ambassador." Within hours, carefully concealed human defense platforms throughout former Confederation space activated simultaneously. Advanced sensor arrays, weapons systems, and defensive shields that had been hidden for generations revealed themselves in a coordinated display of technological superiority. On the Confederation flagship Inevitable Victory, Admiral Zaxlor watched in disbelief as his tactical displays lit up with thousands of previously undetected human installations. "Impossible," he whispered. "Our intelligence indicated humans possessed only minimal defensive technology." His sensor officer stared at the readings in shock. "Sir, these are not minimal. These are beyond anything in our databases. They've surrounded our fleet formations." Before the Admiral could respond, a communication request flashed on his command console. When he reluctantly accepted, Commander Elena Reyes appeared on screen. "Admiral Zaxlor," she greeted him calmly. "The Human Alliance formally requests that you recall your attack forces immediately. We have no desire for conflict, but we are fully prepared to defend our member worlds." "This is Confederation internal business," the Admiral blustered. "These systems are in rebellion. These systems have freely chosen alliance with humanity." Elena interrupted. "Their sovereignty is recognized and protected under our mutual defense treaties." She gestured, and the display split to show the Confederation fleet surrounded by human defense platforms at every approach vector. "You are currently operating within weapons range of our defensive grid. I strongly suggest you reconsider your mission parameters." On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Sorlax received reports of the human response with growing dread. The carefully maintained illusion of Confederation superiority was crumbling faster than anyone had predicted. "Begin contingency planning," he ordered his crisis team. "The galaxy is changing, and we must change with it, or be left behind." The resolution. 1 year after humanity's departure from the Galactic Confederation, The marble halls of the Human Alliance headquarters in Geneva buzzed with activity. Ambassador Kiran Sharma straightened his formal attire as he prepared to receive an unprecedented diplomatic mission. "The Confederation delegation has arrived, sir," his assistant reported. "High Counselor Thorlax is leading it personally." Kiran nodded. "Have them escorted to the grand reception hall. Standard diplomatic protocol." The irony wasn't lost on him. For generations, human representatives had been made to wait hours before Confederation meetings, a subtle reminder of their supposedly lesser status. Today, the most powerful figures in the Confederation would receive precisely the courtesy they had always shown humanity. No more, no less. In the spacious reception hall, High Counselor Thorlax stood flanked by representatives from the Confederation's ruling species. Despite his attempt to project confidence, his iridescent scales betrayed his anxiety, shifting between nervous patterns of blue and green. When Kiran finally entered, accompanied by Commander Reyes and Director Okafor, Thorlax stepped forward with forced dignity. "Ambassador Sharma, I bring greetings from the Galactic Confederation. We hope to discuss terms for resolving our current differences." Kiran gestured to the conference table. "We're always open to dialogue, High Counselor, though I'm curious what has prompted this visit after months of military posturing." Thorlax's scales darkened slightly, a sign of embarrassment. "Recent events have highlighted the valuable contributions humans made to galactic stability. Perhaps we failed to fully appreciate your people's importance to the greater community." "You mean you finally noticed we were solving your problems?" Alina said evenly. The meeting lasted 6 hours. As it progressed, the Confederation's desperation became increasingly apparent. Kiran watched as Thorlax offered concession after concession. Technology sharing rights, increased representation, even seats on the High Council itself. "These are generous offers," Kiran acknowledged eventually. "But they address symptoms, not causes. The Confederation still believes in hierarchical control rather than collaborative progress." Thorlax leaned forward. "What would it take, Ambassador? Name your terms." "It's not about terms, High Counselor. It's about fundamental philosophy. You still see this as a negotiation to restore the old order. We see it as an opportunity to build something better." As the Confederation delegation departed, Kiran received an urgent message. 7 more mid-tier Confederation species had sent envoys requesting immediate alliance negotiations. "They don't want to return to the Confederation," reported his intelligence chief. "They want separate treaties with us." Across the galaxy, the powerful Vex hegemony, longtime Confederation enforcers and self-appointed guardians of galactic order, watched these developments with mounting alarm. In their capital's war chamber, Vex commanders planned military responses. "Humans must be forced back into the established structure," declared Supreme Commander Drax, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming under harsh lights. "Their independence threatens everything we've built." The Vex ambassador to Earth delivered the message with typical bluntness. "Return to Confederation authority within 15 days or face military consequences." Earth's response came not through words but action. That evening, defense platforms previously hidden throughout human-controlled space activated simultaneously, revealing military capabilities that even the Vex had never imagined possible. On the Vex homeworld, sensors detected these activations with alarm. Supreme Commander Drax received the reports with stunned disbelief. "Impossible," he snarled. "Our intelligence indicated humans possessed only minimal defensive technology." His science advisor studied the readings carefully. They'd been concealing their true capabilities for generations. These systems appear to be decades, possibly centuries beyond our current technology. In a secure facility beneath Geneva, Kiran met with the Alliance Leadership Council to discuss the Vex threat. "They've backed down for now," Commander Reyes reported. "Our show of force surprised them." "And the other species seeking alliances?" asked Director Okafor. 32 at last count," Alina replied. "More arriving daily." Outside, ordinary humans went about their lives largely unaware of the diplomatic earthquake their government had triggered. For them, leaving the Confederation meant minor adjustments to daily routines. For the galaxy, it meant fundamental restructuring of power that had stood for millennia. On a distant Confederation world, High Counselor Xorlax received news of the Vex retreat with growing resignation. The carefully maintained fiction of Confederation superiority had dissolved completely. "We must adapt or become irrelevant," he told his advisors. "Begin drafting proposals for a new relationship with the Human Alliance, as equals, not superiors." 6 months later, as the human diplomatic vessel Horizon approached the neutral meeting ground of Concordia Station, Ambassador Sharma reflected on how dramatically the galaxy had transformed in just 18 months. The Confederation, once spanning nearly a third of the known galaxy, had shrunk to barely a fifth of its former size. The Vex hegemony, after one disastrous military engagement against human defenses, had withdrawn to its core systems to lick its wounds. The Human Alliance now included nearly 100 species, with dozens more in negotiations. "We're receiving the arrival signal," Alina informed him. "Representatives from 47 species awaiting our arrival, including what remains of the Confederation leadership." Kiran nodded. "This will be a historic day." As they docked at the massive space station, Kiran observed the diversity of ships surrounding them. Vessels from civilizations that had been bitter enemies for centuries, now gathered in peace. The Galactic Concordat, as historians would later name it, took 3 weeks to negotiate. When Ambassador Sharma finally affixed his signature to the final document, the chamber erupted in applause from hundreds of delegates. High Counselor Xorlax, now representing a much reduced but reforming confederation, approached Kiran afterward. "I still don't fully understand," he admitted. "Your species could have dominated us all with the technology you concealed. Instead, you built a voluntary alliance based on mutual benefit. Why?" Kiran smiled. "Because dominance creates resistance, Counselor. Because control inhibits innovation. But mostly because humanity learned long ago that the strongest societies are those built on cooperation, not coercion." Later, on the observation deck of the Horizon as they prepared to return to Earth, Alina joined Kiran in watching the spectacular view of assembled diplomatic vessels against the backdrop of stars. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. "This new arrangement?" "Nothing lasts forever," he replied. "But we've created something better than what came before. A system where species can develop according to their own nature, not according to rigid hierarchies." "And the technology we've still kept hidden?" she asked quietly. Kiran's expression turned serious. "Some tools should remain in reserve until the galaxy truly needs them. We've seen what happens when advancement outpaces wisdom." As the Horizon engaged its drives and slipped into faster-than-light travel, thousands of ships across the galaxy displayed the new emblem of the Galactic Concord, a symbol designed by a human artist showing diverse celestial bodies orbiting a common center, separate yet unified, independent yet connected. The age of the Confederation had ended. A new era of genuine cooperation had begun, born from humanity's simple decision to stand apart rather than accept inequity. The galaxy would never be the same again, and for countless species who had suffered under the old order, this was cause for celebration. In the depths of space, far from any inhabited system, a lone Vex scout ship detected an anomalous signal emanating from uncharted territory. The commander, still bitter from his civilization's humiliation at human hands, ordered an immediate investigation. What they discovered there, ancient and terrible beyond comprehension, would soon make the political reshuffling of the past 2 years seem insignificant. A threat that would test the new Concord to its limits and prove that humanity's preparation had been prescient indeed. But that would be another story.